Hi everyone, Bandanner here. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the launch version of WARNO. So, as some of you may know, I've done a few guides for WARNO before, which are on a WARNO guides playlist on the channel. I do highly recommend checking them out. They're still mostly relevant other than a few balance changes. Today, I'm starting off those guides again with a basics guide for those who are brand new to the game. Where you should start, where you should move on to, and then at the end of the video we'll talk a little bit about divisions and maybe building your first deck. So nice and simple, gently easing into things. If you're someone who's played WARNO or you've played Eugen's previous games like Steel Division 2 and War Game series, then admittedly this video probably isn't going to be a huge amount of help to you, but you might get something out of the division stuff at the end. Let's start with the basics. We are on the main menu. You've got an armory where you can check out the units and you can build your decks. You've got a mod center where you can see your mods and add them in and out that you've downloaded on Steam. We've got the multiplayer section. We've got the solo section on the far right here. We've got options. We've got your profile and everything in the middle. And you've just got a screen that tells you you are online and connected to the service. So we're going to start today with solo. If there's a demand, I can do a video on the options for the game. It's not something I would instinctively do because I assume most people will want to explore that themselves, but if there is a request to do that or a few requests in the comments, then obviously I can take a look at that. So if you are interested, let me know. But let's start with solo. So you are brand new to the game, I highly recommend doing the tutorials. I've been through all of these at least once, but as I've been in and out of test versions, my status of completing them gets wiped. They won't teach you how to be the best WARNO player ever. They are not going to magically make you a pro at this game, but they will give you the basic skills you need to understand the game. Understand how to use some units and understand, the concept of capping points and things like that. I highly recommend you give all of those a go. You can also do the Army General ones if you want, if you're interested in going on to play Army General as well, but the main ones are all of these up here which teach you the basics of how to use some of the units. Once you've done all of those, it would be my recommendation that you move on to the operations. The advantage to moving on to the operations is you don't have to worry about building your own decks or anything. You get predetermined units, as these are predetermined scenarios or missions. There's a few here to go through and you can play them on the different difficulty levels. Don't let anyone tell you need to start on trained or elite. Some of these missions are very challenging. They are designed to be challenging. They don't want you to have an easy time. So starting on rookie is not an issue. There is no problem with that. I highly recommend if you are brand new to the game, you do that. Because these are a great place to just start off learning the game. Take everything you learn in the tutorials and apply them to actual units while having an overall instruction of how to win or indeed lose these missions. So I highly recommend starting here. Once you have worked your way through the operations, then you have a few different choices. Obviously, there is skirmish. If you're going into skirmish, you either have to use the pre-defined decks that come with the game or build your own. You have the Army General, which, again, I highly recommend. They're a lot of fun. There are a few different Army General campaigns. Bruderkrieg is a lot of fun. It's quite short. It's a good one to start with and get you into the swing of how everything works. And then the ones that follow on from that start to get longer, all the way up to Highway 66, which is obviously very long. And again, you can play them on Rookie, Trained, or Elite. Ease yourself into it. You do not have to play on Elite. Okay? Take it at your own pace. Start Bruderkrieg on Rookie and work your way up. They're a lot of fun. I do recommend them. The AI is a lot better than the previous ones in Eugen games, but they will continue to update it as it's not perfect. And to be fair, I played very few RTS games over the years that have really good AI. So, it is what it is. But I can highly recommend giving those a go. You don't have to worry about decks or anything if you're doing the Army General campaigns because it's predetermined divisions and setups and everything else. The other option obviously is you head over to the multiplayer. So multiplayer is, as you might expect, a mixture of team games and also ranked games. So you can, at the bottom here, hit ranked game and you can get ranked against a random player in 1v1. Now, admittedly, you could end up against someone in the top 100 if there's not a lot of people queuing in ranked at the time you're playing. So it can definitely be a bit of a trial by fire. Otherwise, you can join a team game, you can create your own game, or you can use one of these to join a 10v10 or what they call a 10v10 tactical server at the top, and it will put you into the first free server that it's decided is there. Obviously, you can see at the top here there are a couple of 10v10 servers available which are nearly full, and you could hop into one of those. I would recommend, if you are brand new to the game and you've done the tutorials and the operations and you do want to come into multiplayer, then I would highly recommend hopping into some 10v10s. The tactical ones, you'll have slightly less units, so it's a little bit less stressful. The full 10v10s, you have a lot more to play with. The thing about 10v10s is there's not as much of a reliance on an individual player, so if you are new, I always find they're a good place to start, because then when it comes to, you know, 2v2s, 3v3s, 4v4s, there's a lot more, you know, reliance on each individual player in those games. But there you go, that's multiplayer in a nutshell. We won't go into it too much more today. So, you boot up the game the first time, you're doing the tutorials, you've done the operations, you've maybe dabbled a little bit in the Army General, maybe you've hopped into multiplayer or skirmish with the default decks that come with the game, but maybe now you're thinking, well, I'd like to build my own division. So, if you head to the Armoury, there's a lot of information about the units on the unit cards, as you can see at the right hand side here. And there's a lot of nuance to units, how they interact with each other, how they interact with buildings, forest, the map. The list goes on. This is something you're going to learn over time, and I'm not going to go into a load of detail on that for this video. I want to try and keep things fairly simple. You'll spend a lot of time in the Armoury in Eugen games. You'll spend a lot of time building decks. That is just part and parcel of their games. Today, we're going to keep it simple. I will briefly point out that you can select any of these and deselect them as you wish. Now that I've clicked on 3rd Armoured, for example, I now just see all of the units from the 3rd Armoured. If I clicked on the 8th Infantry, I will also get all of the 8th Infantry stuff mixed in there. Or I can deselect them both and just get access to everything again. Have a play around with it. Obviously, you can change all the settings up here and have a good look through. The main thing we want to focus on are battle groups. These are your battle groups. If the name is white, it's one that you've made. If the name is yellow, it's one that comes as default with the game. So let me show you how it will come when you first boot up the game. This is what it will look like, or something similar. I've got it ordered by alliance with NATO at the top and the Warsaw Pact at the bottom. If the name is yellow, it is a predefined deck that came with the game. There is nothing wrong with playing with these predefined decks if you are brand new at the game. It's just a way for you to get in, learn to use the units, get used to the types of units you like playing with, etc, etc, etc. Once you've got a feel for it, then you can start making your own divisions or your own decks. For some reason, Eugen calls them battle groups here. We all call them decks. It's the same thing. Battle group is a deck is a battle group. I'm going to hide these ones again because I don't ever use the pre-made ones now. I always use my custom ones. But admittedly, I need to delete all these custom ones and start over. But I'd like to give a brief overview of building a deck. I'm not going to go into loads of detail. I'm not going to explain all of the units. And I'm not going to explain too much about why I'm choosing what I'm choosing, because I don't want to make this video too long. I have other videos which go in depth on building divisions or building battle groups or decks, either on this channel or on the RTS Cast and Stuff channel. They are dotted around. They're a bit older now, so it's not always relevant, but I will be making new ones. So I don't want to go into that much detail. But I'm going to create a deck. So you go down here and you hit create. And for the sake of picking one that I like, let's pick the 2nd Infantry Division, which is also really good at the moment, by the way. So here you'll see you have all your tabs. You've got your logistics, your infantry, your artillery, tanks, recon, anti-air, helicopters, and aircraft. You got a name up here. Let's name it Tutorial. Tutorial 2nd Inf. You've got sort, autofill, save. Don't click autofill, for heaven's sakes. And then at the side here, you've got the activation points that you are allowed. So we can have up to 50 activation points, which is what these cards represent at the top here. So for logistics, the first thing I like to do is choose a command. I always like to go for as many as possible, and I always choose a ground vehicle over a helicopter, because helicopters are easily shot down. There are fancy things you can do with command helicopters, because they're used to cap points. That's what commands are for in this game. However, they do get shot down easily, so I don't recommend starting with them. You will have a bad experience, and it might put a bit of taste in your mouth. So I recommend starting with a jeep, something like that. You can hide them in the forests, you can hide them in the middle of towns, and they'll be harder to see, etc, etc. Then you want some supply. I like to go with a couple of Bedford supply trucks myself, just because they're quick, easy, and on the ground. Chinooks are also a good choice because they carry 2,000 apiece, and these things are quite good at moving near the front line and using them sort of as a depot. I wouldn't get them too close to the front line because, again, they can get shot down. The final option, other than helicopters and vehicles, are field supply points, or what used to be called forward operating bases in the older games. These are placeable structures that you place down during the deployment phase, and that's the only time you can put them down. They're quite expensive, but they also hold a lot of supply. However, the enemy can destroy them, so bear that in mind. Infantry tab for the 2nd Infantry is huge. It'll be smaller for other divisions, but it is always important. Infantry are needed, realistically, to hold towns, and also they can be quite scary to vehicles and things if they have anti-tank weapons in both forests and also longer range things such as the Milan 2, which is a long range ATGM missile. In this division, I quite like the SAS. They are very strong. They are quite expensive as a result. They have various bonuses, which you can see up here. And again, we're not going to talk about these too much today. Special Forces, Shock, and Airborne. So the Airborne means they can be forward deployed, which will be for another video. Shock means that they're just hardened soldiers, and Special Forces means they're even harder than that, and they come as elite. But you only get 3 on a card. We're going to take them in a Saxon, because I like taking them in a little vehicle with a machine gun. A little bit extra firepower for them. I'll take 2 cards of those. And as you can see, I'm now using 6 of my 50 activation points. I'm using some in logistics and another 2 here. To keep things simple, I'm just going to stick some air mobiles in here. In a Lynx rocket. Lynx rocket is pretty good. A little bit of firepower from the Lynx there. Going to stick a couple of those in, and we'll rank those up. It means we only get 5 of them per card, but it means they're just got a little bit more staying power in the fight. Next up, I'm going to take some Milan 2s, and I'm just going to take them in a rover for speed. We're not going to rank those up, I just want as many of those as possible. They're more for scaring off vehicles, or doing a bit of damage if they hit. Other than that, up at the top here, you've got Terrier's gun groups, which are just a small group of 4 people. Pretty cheap, but they have a couple of guns, machine guns, and they also have a couple of rifles. HSF are very, very basic units. They are also reservists, so they tend to panic pretty quickly. You get the Royal Military Police, which are quite handy because they negate the reservist trait. So they remove that. You'll see here, Military Police. Military Police grant a suppression regeneration bonus and remove any unsteady traits of nearby units. So the reservist is a unsteady trait. You've got various terriers down here, and again, we're not going to go into it too much, but we'll just take one of these in a Saracen, a different type of vehicle again. They're an anti-tank group. They've got the Carl Gustav, which isn't terrible. We can't rank those up because they're territorials. And then finally, we'll take some arm rifles in the Warrior Milan. So these guys, again, we will rank up and have 6. And we're going to take a couple of cards of those. Finally here, I think we should probably consider taking the Rifles Leader. We only get 2 of those. There aren't any other leaders we get more of, but we can take those guys in a warrior for a bit of extra firepower. So we'll stick those in as well. Infantry tab full. Let's move on. Artillery, you'll find there is a range of things here, from mortars to towed artillery pieces to mobile artillery pieces that are self-propelled, and then also rocket artillery, the MLRS systems, and various other ones such as the Grads for the Soviets. Again, you'll find what you like here. Towed stuff takes a lot of micromanagement because the enemy will try to counter battery you, so you'll need to move it around. Again, mortars that are towed are kind of the same. They have to be carried around by the units. If you get self-propelled mortars, then they're a little bit easier to manage. These things are big, hit hard, but fire very slowly. These are quite expensive when it comes to the resources or the supply they need to rearm, but they do damage over a wide area. I'm just going to stick some mortars in for now, and also some of these 155mm guns. Next up are tanks. So here we don't have a lot of choice because technically they are an infantry division, so they don't get that many tanks to choose from. But you can stick in a couple of sets of Challenger Mark IIs there, Challenger Command Tank, and then if you're feeling a bit spicy, you can take some Rover Milans. Little Jeeps with a Milan on top are pretty good for sitting in tree lines and things, and just scaring off enemy tanks and other vehicles. Recon tab, you get either vehicles, infantry, or you get gazelles, and some of those infantry may even come in another vehicle which also has a recon trait. None here do, but something to keep an eye on, as that can be quite handy as you end up with 2 recon for just bringing in the infantry. I'm going to take some snipers. I'm going to take the Fox because they're quite a lot of fun. They've got an autocannon on there. And we will take some standard scouts here. The British scouts also come with an anti-tank weapon. Not the best, but good at taking out small vehicles. Next up is your anti-air tab. You've got a few different choices here. The blowpipe is not a very good one. I'd avoid it. You've got a Javelin, which is quite a bit better. And you've got the Javelin LML. I quite like these ones, so I'm going to take some of those. They fire a little bit faster. You'll notice that they have a rate of fire of 10. And these only have a rate of fire of 5. Then you've got the rapier system, so you've got a tracked rapier. These guys roll around on their own. I quite like those. And then you've got the rapier FSA and the FSB1. Obviously, the range of these differs a little bit and the accuracy, but you get 6 of those, so I'd rather go with that myself. Helicopters, not a huge amount of choice for the British, but you've got this fancy one here called the Lynx AH-7 Fitto, which is one of the only overflight top attack missiles in the game. So this flies above the target and explodes above it, doing damage to the top of the vehicle or tank. So stick those in for a bit of fun. And then you got the standard Hell Arms here, which have the TOW and the ITOW. I'll stick those in as well. Finally, you've got an air tab. The British don't get a great air tab. You've got the Harriers, which unfortunately the British never upgraded to have long-range missiles. But, you know, they're not terrible. The Phantom is really where it's at when it comes to anti-air, because at least it has the Sky Flash, which is longish range, so we'll stick that in. Always good to have some anti-air options. And then you've got various other bomb types. So we've got lots of HE bombers here. We've got a cluster bomber, which is anti-vehicle. We've got some rocket attack ones and another HE bomber from the Harrier. Harriers are very slow and they don't have a lot of health, so I don't overly recommend them. They just have the advantage of being a bit cheaper. I'm going to grab some clusters there to help us with anti-tank. And I think we should go for some of these HE2 jets because they have quite large bombs. The HE1 only have lots of small bombs, whereas the bigger bombs seem to do a bit more in the game currently. There's also the option of the Tornado, which has 6 of those large bombs as well. Now, when it comes to these, I would probably stick those in as well, personally, because there's the same price. This one has slightly more bombs, which is quite a good thing. And overall, it's got exceptional optics and agility, where the Jaguar isn't quite as good. So the Tornado coming in with slightly better specs there. I don't really want to spend any more here. The only thing I would consider getting there, I guess, is perhaps some more anti-air. So I'm at 45 and 50, so I can now go back through the deck and spend another 5 points, which will be easy enough to do. I'm not going to do it now. This was just to give you an idea of how to build a deck and what you might stick in there. As I say, I will do some videos going into a bit more detail on building decks, including for the 2nd Infantry. But as you can see, you just work your way through, add the units that you want to add, and, you know, have fun with it. That's kind of the point of the game and the deck building. If you're not playing it super seriously in ranked 1v1, build it how you want. Build theme decks if you want. If you're playing with friends against the AI, or you're playing with friends against other people and you like want one person to be artillery, one person to be support, one person to be tank based, then you can build your divisions or decks around that. But there you go. A very basic introduction to where to start in the game and a very basic introduction to deck building. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you all have a great week and I'll see you all soon.